Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
Warning, censorship. We have to put that at the beginning of our videos that talk about the pandemic, because if we are found to be challenging any conventional wisdom or mainstream science or policy, we will get what YouTube calls a policy strike. Not a copyright strike. I understand what that is. You steal someone's music, you steal someone's video, you pass it off as your own, you put it on the internet, you're going to get a copyright strike. I agree with that rule. No stealing. This is different. This is YouTube saying if you deviate from the official line, if you say something that's too dissident, too contrarian, we will give you a policy strike. And that's already happened to us once. That's a problem for a company whose motto is telling the other side of the story. How do you tell the other side of the story if you're only allowed to tell the official side of the story? It makes it a challenge, which is why we throw those censorship warnings on the front of so many of our videos. And they're not messing around. Amazon, Jeff Bezos' company, they deleted my book called China Virus for precisely that reason. They banned it for 2 months, then unbanned it for a week, then banned it again, then unbanned it again. We're currently in an unbanned period of time. And the only reason they gave is it contradicted official sources. What officials? Official government source, official scientific source, official Amazon source, official Canadian source, official Chinese source, official World Health Organization source. We asked them, we had lawyers ask them, they didn't answer. So welcome to the world we live in. What a pleasure to be with you today. It is Pearl Harbor Day. As you know, on December 7th, a day that will live in infamy, Japan attacked the United States in Pearl Harbor. A sneak attack killed almost 3,000 people. It stood as the worst attack on America until 9/11. I'm not sure which was slightly bigger. Both were cowardly, outrageous. I'm doing my show on that partly tonight. It's hard to believe when you think about it that World War II started in September 1939. Germany had annexed part of Czechoslovakia, the Sudetenland I think it was called, and then it invaded Poland, actually split Poland with Russia, and then moved on very soon into Belgium and Holland and France. There was the great evacuation at Dunkirk, then the Battle of Britain. And then actually, Germany turned around and it had carved up Poland with the Soviets, split it in half. Hitler and Stalin carved up that country. And then once Hitler had basically gone all the way west, he turned around and in the summer of 1941 invaded Russia. All of this happened without the United States joining the war. Now, there's actually a really good movie on, I think it's on Apple TV, with Tom Hanks. You want to show 5 seconds of B-roll from that. It was about a convoy, because even though America wasn't fighting the war, it is true under the Lend-Lease Agreement and other agreements, the United States was sending equipment, weapons, material, food supplies, whatever, across the Atlantic to the United Kingdom to help them. But there was no military war until more than 2 years in. Can you believe that? The war was from September 1939. Yeah, it was a very, very good movie. Justin, did you see that movie? It's a good movie. It's very exciting, beautifully shot. I feel like it was a high budget film. It wasn't just crappy CGI. I'm sure there was also, but it was and you really got a feeling for how bitter cold it was in the North Atlantic and the sort of low tech. They just had a little bit of sonar, I think, or radar, I forget, but a lot of scanning for periscopes and stuff, and very nerve-wracking film. I thought it was very well done. Not really an anti-war movie, which is what you expect from Hollywood. I thought it was good. And but it's a reminder that although America supported the UK with convoys of supplies. America did not join the war until December 7th. Actually, I think it was the next day. Basically 1942. Now, as Admiral Yamamoto was to have said, we have awakened the sleeping giant and filled it with a terrible, I forget his exact phrase. But it's hard to believe that more than 2 years the Allies fought without America. Canada was in there with the rest of the British Empire, British Commonwealth. And the UK, Russia, which first was an ally of Hitler, then became an enemy. There were other allies, but it took more than 2 years for America to get involved. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think America, and I mentioned this in my show tonight, has always been wary of foreign entanglements. That's the phrase used by Thomas Jefferson in his 1801 inauguration. America doesn't look for trouble in the world. Now, you might be laughing at that, because America has more military bases around the world than any other country. I think America has bases in 100 countries. The CIA is active everywhere. America has a presence everywhere. But the idea of foreign entanglements, well, maybe it's drifted a bit from Jefferson's ideal. But Trump has returned America to stop meddling, stop being Globocop, stop looking for trouble. He was called naive. He said, oh, you can't take that approach. Well, look, he's done it. He's made peace in the Middle East, at least amongst 3 Arab countries and Israel. NATO is paying its own way. Russia has not invaded another Georgia, as it did under Bush and Obama. Syria, well, ISIS is wiped out, which I think was the main thing. No more toppling of dictators and then standing back as ISIS takes over, as Hillary Clinton and our own Stephen Harper did in Libya. So I like the Trump foreign policy approach. If Trump indeed is replaced by Joe Biden, get ready for endless wars, endless interventions. I don't know why there's an alliance, but I mean, the left used to be about peace and all that, no more war, but the left loves the wars as much as sort of the neocon reshape the world right does. That's why they both hated Trump. I don't know why I took 8 minutes to talk about the date, but it was on my mind. Do my show about it tonight. We have so many things to talk about. Every time I'm in this chair, Justin, our editor-producer, gives me a list of topics that he sees I'm tweeting about. There's only 5 videos on this sheet of paper, but there's so much, and I hope we'll get through it. I'll also take your super chats. I see a few super chats have come in already. BC Prairie Girl Ezra, I met the amazing Drea yesterday at Riverside Calvary Church in Langley. I am so thankful for her and all the rebels. Drea is amazing, and I spoke to her, I think on Friday, and I said, when you go to the church, that or any other church, let the word go out that if there are any tickets or fines or, God forbid, arrests, the Rebel News will provide a free lawyer for any individual, any pastor, any church. And I gave her authority to sign up people without even checking with me, because you don't want to delay, you don't want to stand on ceremony. We have assembled a team. We've been practicing this for 7 months. Our first fight the fines case, as we call it, was, I think that was back in April or May. There was still snow on the ground from last winter. It was Arthur Pavlovsky, a pastor in Calgary who was literally feeding the homeless, and he got I think it was a $1,200 ticket for an illegal gathering. That was so long ago, there was still snow on the ground from last winter. That was our first case, and I think it was our first victory too. The Crown prosecutor looked at the case when we lawyered up and said, I'm not taking this to court, and dropped it. And that's what I hope will happen with a great number of these fines, is that these are just abusive fines ordered by abusive politicians, carried out by, oh, I'm just doing my job police, and that by the time they're finally adjudicated by a judge, they're thrown out as junk tickets, illegal, possibly unconstitutional. So when I said to the team, I want to take 1,000 tickets, a number of people said, well, that's crazy. You can't take 1,000 cases. To take 1,000 cases, you need a law firm of 20 lawyers. How could you run 1,000 trials? That's nuts. Well, first of all, most of them are relatively simple. You're not going to have week-long trials, right? I mean, there's maybe a couple of documents. It's not an intensive, complex case. There might be a witness or two. It's sort of like a traffic ticket, frankly. And if you've ever been to traffic court, it's an extremely rare traffic ticket that takes even an hour to fight. So even if we had 1,000 trials, I think we could handle it. But I don't think we're going to have 1,000 trials. I think most of these cases are going to be punted by prosecutors saying, I can't, because remember, this isn't going to court right away. There's such a backlog in the courts. So, I was paying attention to the state of Victoria, Australia, where they had 23,000 tickets issued in 1 month. And I thought to myself, well, I hope they're building a whole bunch of courthouses, and I hope they're building a whole bunch of jails, and I hope they're hiring a bunch of prosecutors. Actually, I didn't hope any of that. I was just saying, if they seek to actually have 23,000 trials, they better start hiring. Of course, most of those won't even see the light of day. You may know this. In fact, you want to go to savevictoria.com? savevictoria.com.au. There were so many fines down under for illegal protests. They just banned, they banned traveling 5 kilometers outside your house. They had curfews. They had mask rules. They had social. They had all these things, and then they just threw into that stew. Is it coming up? It's slow. You can't have a protest. Yeah, so Save Victoria. Scroll down. All right. So that's not quite, there it is. What does that say? Thanks for I haven't been on this website in a little while, so I didn't recognize it immediately. Let me just end the suspense. We are literally crowdfunding a constitutional challenge to the entire law in Australia that bans political protests in the state of Victoria. Anyway, that's what that page is. If you want to learn more, you can go to savevictoria.com.au. So there's not going to be 23,000 trials. There's just not going to be. And even if there were, they're not going to be week-long trials each. So we're going to cover the first 1,000 cases in Canada. So I said to Drea in Vancouver, I said to Sheila in Edmonton, I said to Kian in Calgary, I said to David Menzies and Tamara Ugolini here in Ontario, I said, don't even wait. We've got that page, fightthefines.com, where people can fill out a form. Great. But if you're literally at a church and there's something going down, don't say, hey, when you get home, go to the form. No. Just take the case right there. And there's some bad things happening across this country, and weirdly, it's really focused on churches. Why are you picking on them? They're also picking on restaurants and gyms. I don't get it. Like gyms, and you just take a look at me and you can say, Ezra, you could use the gym. I sure could. And I think a lot of Canadians could. Get some exercise, get some mental health. It's not just physical health, it's burn off some steam, feel good about yourself. Why are you shutting down gyms and restaurants? Those are pretty much the only people in general society that actually have infection control training, like learn how to clean, emphasize washing your hands, clean working environment, infection, like of all the people who actually might know how to stop an infection, that's going to be your food service people. All these food safe classes. I mean, it's been more than 20 years since I was a waiter, but restaurants are the most attentive people to cleanliness, I think, and probably, than people in the medical health professions itself. So why are you shutting down restaurants? I was in Niagara Falls last night, and it's for real. Do you want to see the tweet that I tweeted last night? And then there was a response to it from a lawyer named Alan Goody. Do you want to throw my tweet up there? So I was in Niagara Falls. And because I knew it was less locked down than Toronto, and it's not that far a drive, and it's very pretty. And there's some good restaurants there. Niagara Falls is a little bit like Vegas, you know? It's a little about that tourist feel, and there's all the tourist restaurants. So here's me tweeting last night. I'm in Niagara Falls. The health authority has a new rule for restaurants. Families of more than 4 people must split up into different tables? A family of 5 that drove in one car must sit apart from each other? That's not nuts. What's nuts is how obediently people comply. And if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see Alan Goody, who's an old friend of mine in Calgary. There we go. So he says, at first I thought there's no way this is true. Turns out, and then can you click on that image there? So he's a lawyer, smart cookie. So he goes online and he's quoting from the rules here. Ensure that no more than 6 people are seated at each table in an indoor or outdoor area. As of Monday, November 16, 2020, the provincial government has changed this to 4 people at a table, as Niagara is now in the restrict level of the Ontario COVID-19 response framework. Yeah, I had trouble believing it too. I thought that's a goofy rule. Well, you phone 3 restaurants and they all say the same thing. And they said, listen, I'm not picking on the restaurants. They said, look, it's the provincial guidelines. But as I said in my original tweet, it's a nutty rule, but the real kooks are the people following it. You know, I argue in a friendly way with friends and family who say, Ezra, you're too hard line on this mask stuff. Just do it. I said, if you know it's ridiculous, if you know this 4 people at a table rule is kooky, why are you following it? Are you practicing your obedience training? Are you practicing your conditioning to do what you're told? Would you wear a pirate-style eye patch if the authority said you got to wear that? Well, that's ridiculous. That's got nothing to do with the virus. Yeah, so does having 4 but not 5 people at a table when you all arrived in the same vehicle. Would you wear an eye patch? Like pirate style. Arr! I know that's a goofy example, but the reason you're saying, oh, that's a goofy example is because you know intuitively that's got nothing to do with science. That's ridiculous. Sure, it's ridiculous, and so is this rule I've just described to you that the entire city of Niagara Falls is following. And by the way, if you know anything about Niagara Falls, you know it's a very tourist-oriented place. So basically going to war against restaurants and people having fun, why not just shut the place down and just say, hey, everybody, just stay home and buy your products from Amazon and buy your movies from Amazon Prime, and let's give him another $1 billion a day. Jeff Bezos has made between $500 million and $1 billion per day throughout this entire lockdown. His net worth has increased $100 billion, and there's been about 160, 180 days. So that's more than $500 million, less than $1 billion a day he's worth, a day. His net worth is $200 billion last it was reported. Richer than anyone else on the face of the earth. Now, J.D. Rockefeller, the oligarch, robber baron of more than a century ago, in current purchasing power dollars, was probably worth, they say, $250 billion, so about $50 billion more. So Bezos, probably by the end of the Christmas season, Jeff Bezos will be richer in purchasing power than J.D. Rockefeller himself. But of course, Rockefeller only controlled oil and railways and factories. He didn't control everything you read, everything you see, everything you do, which is what these tech oligarchs do. J.D. Rockefeller didn't know the name, address, phone number, email address, browsing history of everyone who bought oil from him. He just had a monopoly on the oil. Jeff Bezos has a near monopoly on so many things, but much more, he knows everything about you. He knows more than you know about you because you forget some things. You forget what you were browsing 6 months ago. you remember what you were browsing 2 years ago? Do you remember when you were clicking around 5 years ago? Remember that? Remember what you read 5 years ago? Remember what you said in a tweet 5 years ago? Of course you don't remember that. But the internet never forgets, and everything you type in Facebook, Google, YouTube, Twitter is forever remembered. And you can't remember everything you've ever said, done, or looked at, but they know. Let's catch up here. Solid as a b-ball. $5. What do you say is the main difference between Rebel and True North? Friendly question, like both you guys. David Menzies should be MMA training. I very much like True North. I'd say they're my favorite media company in Canada other than Rebel News. I like Candace. I like Anthony Fury. I like Andrew Lawton. I like Lindsay Shepherd, Cosmin Dzurja, Leo Knight. I'm sorry, there's another young fellow there. I just forgot his name. I worked briefly with him at Sun News years ago. A Jewish Moroccan fellow he's a great guy. Sorry, I apologize. Sam Eskenazi. There you go. Forgive me. No, they're great. I support them. In fact, I think I'm a donor to them. Not a big shot donor, but I give them a little bit. And we have them on the show. So if you're asking what's the difference between us, I think we have more output. We do about 10 videos a day these days? Almost. And we do how many written stories a day are we doing? About 5 a day, at least. So we're putting out, let's say 15 pieces a day. Many of them, especially on the video side, are reported on the scene. So that's, I think, more output than True North, and it's more on the scene video-oriented reporting. That's just a difference. I'm not saying either is better. I'm just saying that's a difference. But I admire them. I support them personally. We support them with our company. We work with them where we can. You might recall a couple years ago, in fact, Candace Malcolm and Andrew Lawton came with me to the UK to report on free speech matters there. And of course, we were in court together as friends, fighting Justin Trudeau's censorship of the election debates. So I have nothing but good things to say about them. We just have a bit of a different focus and style. And I think we're more activists too. I think that's a pretty important point. For example, our Fight the Fines project. That's really activism and civil liberties action as opposed to just reporting. But I love those guys. Solid as a b-ball, $2 for a zinc promotion. MSM has never heard of it. Okay. AMT, $10. Canada's one of only 2 G20 nations that does not have a national vaccine injury compensation program, Ezra. Can Rebels start a petition or ask government, since COVID vaccine will probably be mandated, no jab, no something? Yeah, well, what scares me, do you have that Bill Gates clip, the one we used the other day? Product liability is very old and decided law. You can't poison someone. You can't even misrepresent things. You can't trick someone. You can't lie to someone. And if you harm someone, that's not necessarily a crime. It can just be negligence, and you can be sued for it. That's very old law. Obviously, when you're in the field of medicine, pharmaceuticals, and things like that, you want to encourage the development of drugs that help us live better and happier and healthier. You want to encourage that, but you also want to be careful. Sometimes getting the balance right is hard. I don't know if you know the word thalidomide, but about 50 years ago there was a drug, thalidomide. I think it was, going from memory, I think it was to help mums with morning sickness. Am I getting that right? But what happened is thalidomide is so terrible. Babies were born without limbs. It's so tragic, and it wasn't properly tested, and so these beautiful babies were born without arms. And it was this drug. It was this drug that was rushed to market. So you want to have a balance. You want to get drugs to market. You want to have drugs that people need very badly. just because there are some side effects doesn't mean a drug isn't good. There are some drugs that have mild side effects. You say, you know what, I'll take that side effect because I know what this drug does for me. Even Advil or Tylenol can have a negative side effect. They're listed, and you can overdose on them. There's a risk. But I mean, Advil, it's my favorite pain relief go-to med. It's the only one that works for me, frankly. So yeah, I know there's some risks, but I'm willing to accept that risk because it's so clearly useful to me. Just telling a personal story. And it's been around for decades. And by the way, a lot of these meds say don't take if you're a pregnant mom. Don't take if you're nursing. You know, I was looking years ago to go to Africa, and there was all sorts of shots you need to go, like if you're going to Ebola country, or malaria meds, you know. And they say don't take some of the malaria meds if you're planning on getting preggers. Like, just don't do it. They tell you that. They say do not travel to this country if you might or want to get preggers in the next great period of time. That's what they say. Okay, I'm glad to know it. But look at how Bill Gates talks about a COVID vaccine rushed to market. Listen to what he says about rushing it to market and how he wants governments to ban people from suing if there are side effects because it was rushed to market. Take a listen.
Expectations. The efficacy of vaccines in older people is always a huge challenge. You know, it turns out the flu vaccine isn't that effective in elderly people. Most of the benefit comes from younger people not spreading it because they're vaccinated, and that benefits on a community basis the elderly. Here, we clearly need a vaccine that works in the upper age range because they're most at risk of that. And doing that so that you amp it up so it works in older people and yet you don't have side effects. You know, if we have, 1 in 10,000 side effects, that's, way more, 700,000, people who will suffer from that. So really understanding the safety at gigantic scale across all age ranges, pregnant, male, female, undernourished, existing comorbidities, it's very, very hard. And that actual decision of, okay, let's go and give this vaccine to the entire world, governments will have to be involved because there will be some risk and indemnification needed before that can be decided on.
Did you hear that? He used some jargon, but I think it was pretty plain. He said, we need to amp it up. What does he mean by that? So you know what a vaccine is, in very general terms. It introduces a small dose of the pathogen into your system to stimulate your body's immunity to it. So a dead version of the disease or an animal variation of it. And the idea is to get your body to develop an immune response to this small, hopefully harmless dose, so that when you encounter the real deal, you have an immunity to it. That's why sometimes when you get a vaccine, you get a temporary flu-ish reaction to it because you actually did get a little dose of it. But you heard him here. We got to amp it up. We got to amp it up. And what about the side effects? And what about if? And he said, what if the side effects only hit 1 in 10,000 people? Well, as he said, 700,000 people in the world would suffer because if there's approximately 7 billion people in the world, 1 in 10,000 means 700,000 will suffer. And remember, he was talking about all ages. He said that, including if you're pregnant, including if you're undernourished. Think about that, because, is your body weaker because you don't have food, you don't have vitamins, you don't have, enough calories in the day? You're going to take this med anyways. Is your body strong enough to fight back, especially when you're getting an amped up dose? I didn't say these words. You saw it straight from Bill Gates. Undernourished, comorbidities. That's a fancy way of saying, let's say you've already got diabetes, kidney disease, you got liver disease, you got heart disease, you got dementia, happens to be another one. Let's say you're 100 years old and you have a lot of diseases going on. Bill Gates wants to give you an amped up vaccine. How do you feel about that? Has it been tested on anyone 100 years old? Did you just sentence that 100-year-old person to death? Now, you said all ages. You heard him there. You heard him say that. So he's talking about kids, too. Is he talking about babies? Has this virus, it's a vaccine that's being rushed to market, was it tested on babies? Well, we know it wasn't tested on babies. Well, who knows what China's doing? Who knows what? Maybe, you know what? Let me say this. I know a little bit about the Holocaust in Nazi Germany, and there was a horrific doctor, Dr. Joseph Mengele, in Auschwitz, who, since these people, these Jews, were going to be killed anyways, he did horrific scientific experiments on them before they were killed. Experiments with twins, for example. Experiments with testing toxins on them. He basically said, look, Hitler, you're about to kill all these people. Let's do some science on it. Hypothermia. Let's just find the extremes of the human body. And since there's no medical ethics here, we don't have to worry. These people are Untermenschen. These people are subhuman. They're going to be killed anyways. Can I just borrow those people to run some tests on them? And I might kill them, but can I just do, and in fact, one of the ethical questions after the Second World War was when this medical knowledge was captured from the Nazis, is it ethical to use that? We know that people die from these diseases, from this, when they're infected like this. When hypothermia happened to be one particular example, that was useful scientific information to civilian life, to military life. There was the ethical issue of it having been extracted through torture. I'd give you that precedent because we happen to know that right now, China has massive concentration camps in a province in western China called Xinjiang, which means New Frontier. I've been to Xinjiang. I've been to its capital city, Urumqi. I've been to Tulufan. Frankly, it was one of my favorite provinces in all of China. Very interesting looking people. You want to grab just a Xinjiang model? They have a fascinating look. They're not quite, well, they're not Han Chinese. And I remember just constantly being shocked at the blue eyes. Blue eyes in China. A fascinating, just, you know, there's these Xinjiang models. There's a look that's so beautiful. And it's such a colorful place. And it's Muslim. And I've been to some, I haven't been to many Muslim places, let's be honest. I've been to Iraq. It's about the toughest place I've been. I've been to the West Bank. I've been to Ramallah. I found, and this is just me as a tourist, I don't think I was there for a week. I found the Islam in Xinjiang very relaxed, very calm, because it hadn't been weaponized by infusions of either Saudi or Iranian money. It felt very laid back. It felt like the kind of thing that maybe Marco Polo would have discovered when he was there. I found it a very easygoing place. China disagrees. China thinks that it is one of the greatest threats to their country. And they say that Islam itself is the root of that threat. Now, it is true that Islam in other regions, in other empires, is very political and can be violent. XIN, yeah, who's that one on the top left there? That looks like someone from Xinjiang. Yeah, Uyghurs, perfect, yeah, that's exactly right. That's who I'm talking about, these Uyghur models. Click on that lady on the right there. That's, yeah, I think I in fact read this story. It's a very, for some Chinese Uyghurs, modeling is a path to success. There's a certain look. Like, is that young lady Western or is she Chinese? Scroll down a little more. Interesting look, right? Not quite Chinese, not Western. The blue eyes will shock you. Thanks. And it's not a big point. It's just saying it's a very, very interesting place. The night market in Urumqi. I loved it. And I don't eat pork. So it was my favorite place to eat food on the street in China because I knew they weren't eating pork. Lots of lamb and goat. China's got 1 million of these folks in concentration camps. You want to call up some proof of that? Just Uyghur concentration camps. Now, they're not death camps that we know of. They're not killing everybody. They're not crematoria, poison gas, Zyklon B. They're not doing that from what I know. It's just a concentration camp. What does that mean? Take them all, put them together, labor camps, re-education. Yeah, so not so much a news, a viz, but give me a news story. It's very well documented that China is putting these Uyghurs into concentration camps. Not death camps, concentration camps. What does that mean? Put them all together. Whoops, I just dropped my Red Bull. Pull them all together, re-educate them, drum the Islam out of them, drum the ethnic identity out of them, indoctrinate them into the, China has built 300, so what's this source here? The Guardian, okay. Liberal newspaper out of Manchester. China has built 380 internment camps in Xinjiang, study finds. Construction has continued despite Beijing's claim re-education system is winding down. China has built nearly 400 internment camps in Xinjiang region, with construction on dozens continuing over the last 2 years, even as Chinese authorities said their re-education system was winding down, an Australian think tank has found. So this is just, I see in the left there, this is just from, what does that say? September 2020. So this is recent. A network of camps in China's far west used to detain Uyghurs. Uyghur is the ethnic identity of these Chinese Muslims. And people from other Muslim minorities include 14 that are still under construction, yada, yada, yada. So it's not death camps, it's just, some of them are semi-slave labor. Okay, thanks. Went on a little bit of a tangent there. My point is, are they doing Joseph Mengele-style experiments on these Uyghur Muslims to test Chinese vaccines? I have no evidence that they are. How would I know? There's no free press in China. There's repression. Xinjiang is far away from Hong Kong, Shanghai, Beijing. When I went there a decade ago or a little more, it was as easy as hopping on a plane the day, it couldn't have been easier. I'm guessing if you were to go to Urumqi, if you were to be a Westerner going to Xinjiang province right now, they'd say, what are you doing? They might even track you. That was not the way back then. In fact, the hardest thing was just getting around with huge language barriers. In fact, there were more Russians in Urumqi back then than there were Anglos. We spent a whole day in Turpan, and we saw one other Western person the entire day. No one was going out there. Now, I think probably no one goes out there because they're probably screened. What do you think? We've seen credible, authoritative charges that China takes Falun Gong, political religious minorities, and I don't mean to gross you out, but credible Western observers show that Falun Gong, that's a religious denomination, prisoners have their organs harvested for organ transplant. Harvested is a way of saying cut out of their bodies. One of the reasons for that is because the Chinese Communist Party, which hates the Falun Gong, thinks that Falun Gong people are very healthy, both physically and spiritually, so they are prized for their clean organs. Isn't that crazy? Welcome to Communist China. Remember we showed an image of the Urumqi airport and they had a special line for organ harvesting? Do you remember that? If you type in Xinjiang Airport Organ Lane, I bet you'll find it. Someone took a photo. I was in that Urumqi airport. Someone took a photo. They have a special lane for organ harvesting. I know that sounds nuts. Let me know if you can find it. Put it up on the screen if you can. My point is, if this is a country whose communist dictators literally cut the organs, living organs, out of living prisoners of political dissidents they hate, if they do that to get transplant organs for Chinese party bosses and foreigners paying $100,000. Yeah, yes, thank you. Can you pump up the viz on this so I can read it? Yeah, scroll up just a little bit. Up a little bit more. Proof of China's organ harvesting found in Xinjiang, the shocking meaning behind Kashgar Airport's organ priority lane. Okay, I have not been to this airport. Under the Xi Jinping autocracy, China has been intensifying persecutions of Christians and ethnic minority groups such as those in Tibet and Xinjiang. Meanwhile, an airport in Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region has installed an absurd priority lane sign. The photograph to the below shows a priority lane sign marked Special Passengers Human Organ Exportation Lane that was installed in Kashgar Airport, located in Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, an area in the westernmost region of China that lies in a strategically important place along the Silk Road. The sign is written in simplified Chinese and Arabic. Special passengers obviously refers to diplomats, party officials, and state guests, but why does it also have the words human organ exportation lane? A lane is a lane that must be kept open for the speedy transportation of recently extracted organs and implants. The sign is so explicit that when the photo first went viral, many people thought it was a fake. When Japanese travelers landed in Kashgar Airport in January this year, however, they confirmed that it was real and took photos themselves. Thanks. So if the Communist Party will cut an organ out of a living prisoner for politics and profit, do you think they're morally above testing vaccines on Uyghur children, Uyghur pregnant mums, Uyghur nursing mums, undernourished Uyghurs, Uyghurs who are 80 or 90 years old, amped up doses? What do you think? Do you think they're morally above that? Xi Jinping and the Communist Party of China, what do you think? A lot of super chats, let's get back to them. Joe Wee, $5. Dems are against law and order, but for lockdowns and mandates. Hey, that's a good point. Yeah, it's the only time they... Can we show Eric Garcetti's house? Eric Garcetti is the mayor of Los Angeles. He's a big defund the police guy. He's a big anti-cops guy. He's a big sanctuary city guy. But when there was a protest at his house, he said, bring the cops and bring your batons. Hit anyone outside my house. Here, take a look. That one cop with the baton, I don't know if that was standard practice. I mean, I would not want to be hit by a baton, but it didn't look particularly forceful. Show that one more time. I think that's, I wouldn't, listen, don't hit me with a baton, but go away, go away, go away, go away, go away. I said go away, go out, out. Like that guy didn't even flinch. I think there's just a small chance. I think that was a lady cop. I think there's a small chance that she may not have passed the same basic training requirements as the fellas. Don't hit me with the baton. I don't want to be hit even lightly. But I saw her hit that one guy, and he didn't even move. Go away, go away. So maybe they actually already did defund the police, and that's all that's left. Kyle McGregor, $15. Any thoughts about one of Randy Hillier's sons being tasered, apparently over protesting masks? Apparently OPP have been forcing badly mask regulations if in the Perth area, according to Hillier. We should have Randy on. I've met one of his sons. Maybe I know he had one son who went to volunteer to fight with the Kurds against ISIS. He's got a very interesting family. I did hear about that. I should follow it up. Lisa Proust, Research and Meditation, $5. Ezra, I genuinely mean this. Thank you so much for all you do, your initiatives, your team, your information dissemination, everything. Thank you. Well, Lisa, thank you for being such a loyal supporter. Solid as a B-ball, $2. Hey, Justin, I just sent 2 super chats before the show started. Okay, I think I'm just catching up. I'm catching up. Little Cindy loves Jesus, $10. Thank you. Well, thank you. Marilyn Wallace, $5. I'm donating just for the Pirate Patch comment. Left my LMAO. Well, that's the thing. I mean, I was, is there anything, like, would you literally wear a tinfoil hat? Remember that movie Signs? They made tinfoil hats, very funny. If you knew something had no scientific basis, but the authority said do it, would you do it just to be obedient? If you arrive at a restaurant with 5 people in your car, from the same family, you live in the same house, you're in the same car, you just drove there together, and they said, sorry, we got to split you up for health reasons, would you say, yeah, sure, that makes sense? Or would you even say, yeah, sure, even though that doesn't make sense? Or would you say, no, that's stupid? It seems like an easy choice to me, but people like to go along to get along. Little Cindy loves Jesus, $5. I read the small print and ripped off my mask and said that applies to me. It was so small, almost needed a magnifying glass to read it. I don't know what small print you're talking about, Cindy. Little Cindy loves Jesus, $10. One woman with child, she was walking with her mask and almost walked in front of my car. She was in a daze. I said to my mom, thank God I saw her. She is in a daze. This waitress last night, I was talking to her. I had a mask exemption button on. I showed her the rules in Niagara Falls, and she said to me, wearing the mask makes her anxious. Well, of course, it's not normal. Coolio Andy, $5. Thank you. David Cozier, $5. With a link to a story about firefighters saying they'll refuse the vaccine more than half. You want to? We can click that link. I saw the same story from a prestigious hospital in New York City, where the frontline nurses are saying, "Yeah, no thanks. We don't want to be your vaccine guinea pigs." Coolio Indeed, $2. Huge fan of the Rebels. Scary times under Pallister. Oh, he's gone mad. He's gone mad. And that's the worst, the mad kings. That's why we don't have kings. We have constitutional democracies with checks and balances. Tara Skins, $5. Why is nobody talking about Chrystia Freeland's comments from Friday? She wants our savings. Like, what the heck? Yeah, let's show this right now. You know the comments? I mean, they've already spent, what, $500 billion, $400 billion. We're the worst in the G20. But she's thinking, how do I get the real money? Like, how do I stop talking about billions and start talking about trillions? Well, here's how. Take a look.
I want to thank you, first of all, for really zeroing in on the preloaded stimulus idea. None of us have a crystal ball, but economists like Ben, like Doug, have been pointing out that some Canadian households, and it tends to be the better off households, do have quite a lot of money that they've saved because there hasn't been that much to do in the pandemic. And certainly it would be great if that money could go towards driving our recovery. And I want to make an offer now to all of your listeners. If people have ideas on how the government can act to help unlock that preloaded stimulus, I am very, very interested. Maybe, as Doug Porter was suggesting, it happens by itself. That's the best case scenario for me. But if people have ideas on how we can really, try to unleash that, and particularly unleash it in the parts of the Canadian economy that really need support, tourism, hospitality, domestic services, let me know.
You know, I find it nerve-wracking when a finance minister says, hey guys, anyone know how to steer the ship? Yeah, I'm flying the plane. Anyone know how to do this? Let me know. Hey guys, especially you high schoolers, let me know. I find that unnerving. But even more unnerving is when she talks about people's savings. So there's far more savings, and like savings in your house, savings in your stock, your life savings. She wants to unleash that. Well, no, it's on a leash because it's mine and you can't take it because I've worked my whole life for it, whether it's my house or my business or my savings. You can't have it, but she wants it. Bob Truesdale, $10. Thank you, Bob. Patrick Bentley, $5. Can you update the story of the farmer arrested in Didsbury? Are you talking about Jeremiah? Because Jeremiah, we've done a few videos on it, and the charges were dropped against him. I wish he would sue the cops for assault and false arrest, but I don't think that's in his nature. You can, if that's what you're talking about, we've done 2 big stories on him. You can find them on our YouTube channel. Viking Insane, $2. Props to Kenny for ejecting the Great Reset, not Ontario or Manitoba. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of funny watching the liberal media, political industrial complex push back on the Great Reset. Half the time they're saying, that's not a thing, that's a conspiracy theory, you're making that up. And the other half they're saying, okay, fine, it's a thing, but it's a good thing. Pick a lane, guys. I've done a lot of little videos on the Great Reset over the last month. I'm not going to go deeper than that right now. Flat Earth Data, $7. Thanks for all your work. Wait until you find out there's no scientific evidence for a spinning Earth. It's a challenge no one can prove, only reify. You know what? I'm going to disagree with you on that one, mate, but thanks for the super chat. Derek G., I wish you guys would investigate the so-called raise in coronavirus cases. Are most of these people from nursing homes? Why are they in intensive care specifically? Because of complications or by precautions? Well, that's the thing, and we've done this so many times. If you go to what people talk about all the time is they say cases. Do you want to go to the Alberta stats? Cases, cases, cases. What's a case? Does a case mean you have a symptom? Does a case mean you're sick? Or is a case just someone who says they have a case? Is a case someone who takes a test but it's a false positive? So I don't know what a case means. I think it means a different thing. If someone has symptoms, that's more informative. So here's Alberta, and they have 601 people in hospital, which is a new high for them. 100 of them are in ICUs. So there's slightly more than 100 hospitals in Alberta. So on average, Alberta hospitals have 1 person in the ICU. Look on the right there, the average age of death is 83. Can you click on total deaths, which is just up there, 615. Yeah, click on that. And then can you scroll down to comorbidities, thank you very much. So how many of the people who died had these things wrong with them? And you'll see that the numbers add up to much more than 100% because the people who died had more than one thing. So 88% of people who died had hypertension, which is a fancy way of saying clinical high blood pressure. 57% had dementia. 54% had cardiovascular diseases. That means your heart and your veins. 43% had diabetes. 43% had renal diseases. That's a fancy way of saying liver, I think. So you'll notice that most victims had 1, 2, 3, 4 serious things wrong with them. And now on the left there, go way over to the left, way over to the left. So the percent of people who had 3 or more is about 77%. Then the blue is 2, then the 16%, and then the dark green. The number who had no underlying comorbidity. 2 people, 2% or 2%. So that's 2% out of how many people have died? 600? So you had 11 people. Thank you, Justin, you're navigating this page. So 11 people in the entire province have died from COVID alone. 11. Look at that, 417, or 77% of them, died with 3 or more. Now, I'm not celebrating any of these deaths. I'm not saying good. I'm saying, have you learned something? The average age is 83. The average one of them had 3 or more things happen to them before, and I'm talking serious things. You got a heart attack, and you got dementia, and you got diabetes, and you got liver failure, and you're 84. Okay, well, you're in great jeopardy. You may actually be in the sunset of your life now, sorry to say. And it is not surprising that a flu-like virus pushed you into your grave, and I'm sorry about that. And if it weren't the coronavirus, it might have been the annual flu, or maybe you would have lived another year. And I'm not happy about any of this, but it is informative, is it not? When you know that the average age of death is 83, and when you know that the average person who died actually had 3 diabetes, dementia, heart disease, liver disease, can we not agree that it's okay for a young family with kids to sit 5 people at a table? Can we not agree that you don't need to shut down the schools? I don't think a single Albertan under the age of 20 has died. In fact, I'm quite sure of it. Oh, let's hurry up. Foobar snafu, $10. Maybe this is what the Bible means when it says the Bill Gates of hell shall not prevail. Sure hope it's right. Yeah, Bill Gates, what's so funny about that is he's one of the world's richest men. Last I checked, he had about $50 billion in net worth. Why is he trying so hard to indemnify vaccine companies from lawsuits? Like, frankly, you're the perfect guy. I mean, what do you need the money for? If you really want to push this vaccine on us that hasn't been tested on babies or pregnant moms or nursing moms or the very elderly. Like we just saw that the average age of death in Alberta is 83. You got a lot of 83-year-olds in your vaccine test program? I had a buddy of mine who wasn't doing very well financially, and he signed up for to be a guinea pig, human guinea pig. And basically he and a bunch of other guys got paid to hang out in this sort of like a Big Brother type house, played a lot of pool, played a lot of darts, just hung out. They weren't allowed to drink, they weren't allowed to do things. They just took this med and they got paid thousands of dollars and they signed away all their rights, and they knew what they were doing was risky, but they said, look, I need the money. Here's a buddy of mine. There were no 83-year-olds hanging out with my buddy playing pool. It was all guys like him. There were no pregnant moms saying, yeah, I'd like $1,000 a week. That's more important to me than my baby. Sure, absolutely. I'm a pregnant mom and I can't wait to make an extra $1,000 being a guinea pig for your new medicine. And you know what? I don't know how we test things on pregnant moms. I don't know how that's done. Maybe we just say never take a medicine if you're a pregnant mom, although I guess pregnant moms take certain medications here and there. But do you think they're testing their vaccines on 83-year-olds with 3 underlying comorbidities? And as Bill Gates said, we got to amp it up for those people. You're going to amp it up, you're going to kill them. He said everyone in the world. He said all ages. You heard him say it. Okay, we're testing this on babies. You got a baby. The chance of your baby dying from the coronavirus is, I don't even know if any baby has. I tell you, in all of Canada, I think there's been a single person under age 20. Maybe there's 2. What right-minded person would say, yeah, test my kid? Why? There's no way that vaccine has a lower risk rate than real life, where no one's died on that of tender years. Why would you jab a kid? But Bill Gates says he wants to jab all ages. He talked about pregnant moms. He talked about undernourished people. The only place in the world I can imagine where they're testing these kind of people would be in Xinjiang in one of their prison camps. Dr. Mengele style. All right, it's 12:59. I gotta speed up here. The Patriot Canadian Maine, $5. Where are the Army of Canada? Well, hopefully nowhere to deal with any of this because it's not a military matter. The Patriot Canadian, Maine. Where the accountability for our government to put all Canadian into wholly mind-blowing thing? I'm sorry, I don't quite understand what you're saying. Chris Dunn, $10 the Menzoid can to a man on the street segment on plans to impose the pirate patch. Safety rubber gloves and hoods. That is funny. That is funny. You're planting a seed. Alex David Duke, Alex, how you doing? Nice to see you again. $5. Pfizer SARS coronavirus 2 vaccine is a scam. Trial endpoint does prove it reduces death in the most vulnerable, only prevent illness in healthy people. I have not studied that, but all I know is what Bill Gates said. He says, give it to everybody, including pregnant moms, undernourished, people with comorbidities, all ages. It doesn't make sense to me. Doesn't make sense to me. I got one word for you, thalidomide. Google thalidomide. It's going to shock people. Warning, you're about to see something gross. But these are real people this happened to. This is what happens when you rush something to market without testing. I'm not saying this would happen with a coronavirus vaccine. I'm saying it happened with another med that wasn't tested. I'm going to show some images now. This is thalidomide babies who were born without limbs. Okay, that's enough. Thanks. So yeah, I don't want to take a thalidomide vaccine, please. I know Bill Gates doesn't want to have any liability for his friends in the vaccine industry, but he's got $50 billion. I think he should put his money where his mouth is. Get some skin in the game there, Bill. If we can break you away from hanging out on Jeffrey Epstein's Lolita Island, can you Google the New York Times article there? You know, any other person in the world, the New York Times did a story on just how, the New York Times article itself, on just how close Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Gates were. Like they met again and again and again and again and again and again and again, even after the bad news started coming out about who this guy was. There was, he went to Jeffrey Epstein's fancy home. Yeah, Bill Gates met with Jeffrey Epstein many times despite his past. And there you can see Epstein in the middle and there's Bill Gates just next to him. And they were friends. They absolutely were friends. And they hung out at his house late into the night. That's not some right-wing blog. That is the New York Times. Bill Gates met with Jeffrey Epstein many times despite his past. That's the one word I'd object to. I think it's more likely of because of his past. If you're a loser, nerd, awkward guy like Bill Gates, who has had a life of enormous commercial and scientific and success. So you're 60 years old and you are worth countless billions, one of the richest men ever. And you look back on your life of great achievement, but you didn't have any success with women. And you certainly, when you were a teenager, didn't have any success with teenage girls. Maybe Jeffrey Epstein is a way to get your own time machine. Because what Jeffrey Epstein specialized in was child rape, was pedophilia. Jeffrey Epstein had no particular skill set other than he had that Lolita Island in the Caribbean and a private plane to get there with, no tracking. What would Bill Gates be doing with such a man? Well, it sounds like a good question. Maybe it's a perfectly good answer. I don't know why Bill Gates is interviewed on TV about vaccines all the time and not asked about that extensive relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. I wonder if it's because people are afraid to ask him. Let me hurry up. Coolio Andy, $10, stood up to the COVID cops this morning at Shoppers, stood my ground mask free while I used the self-checkout. Good for you. Harps 666, $5, went to a gig in Melbourne Saturday wearing a Welcome to Victoria, the police state, with a picture of cops beating someone, and 4 cop cars drive past and 1 cop smiled. I wonder if he smiled knowingly or smiled as in, yeah, that's us. The Patriot Canadian, Maine, $5. Do you think Rocco Galati will put his lawsuit soon? Well, I've already interviewed him about one of his lawsuits that he's filed here in Ontario. I haven't been in touch with him since then. I like Rocco. His lawsuits are slightly non-standard, let me say that way. It would be foolish to discount him because he has had great success on occasion before, including derailing the appointment of a Supreme Court judge. There's no bigger game than that. But the lawsuit I reviewed, the 191-page one that I read when he came on my show, felt like it was suing everybody, suing the CBC, suing the federal government, the provincial government, the health. The lawsuit, and maybe it'll be successful. It just seems like it's going to be a big, boggy battle. The lawsuit we filed in Australia, by contrast, was focused like a laser on one little thing: the ban on protesting. And it didn't sue everyone and their horse. We'll see which strategy works. I like Rocco. I enjoyed my time with him. But, we've been in this lockdown for 6 months already. All right, my friends, it is 1:06 p.m. And it's great to be back in the chair. I took a few days off last week because I was working on other projects. We got to 1, 2, 3 of the clips or the topics today. 3 out of 6 ain't bad. I'm going to end it there just because I got to go. It's 1:06. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. I've got my show at 8 p.m. where I expand on Pearl Harbor Day and talk about the right to protest here in Canada during the lockdown. That's at 8 p.m. If you want to subscribe to that, go to rebelnews.com and click subscribe. But can I tell you, I'm so excited about our store. And I haven't said that in 5 years. We're almost 6 years old here at Rebel News. I've never really been excited about our store. It never really had awesome stuff in it before. No, just to be very candid. But look at some of these fun things. Now that's a fun one right there. What's the URL? rebelnewsstore.com, is that right? Rebel News Store. And look at that one there. Free Adam Skelly, the Barbecue Rebellion. That's a really funny one. We got Patriot with these are obviously very Canada-centric. Make Canada Great Again. So it looks like MAGA, but it says Make Canada Great. I like those. Patriot. These are sharp. Look at that hat. I like that hat. What do you think? Patriot, Rebel, Make Canada Great Again. I like the toque. The megaphone, a little bit lower key. So Rebel, that almost looks like the brand Obey, right? Very simple. But that megaphone, that's a little more subtle. You know what? You wear that megaphone hat, and it's like a secret Batman searchlight, the bat signal, that only other rebels are going to know. Because if you're not watching Rebel News often, you don't know what that megaphone is, right? But if you're watching, you know what that megaphone is. So you put that on your hat, and you're walking around. It's like a secret handshake that only other rebels know. I got to start wearing that around town. COVID 1984, that's a good one, isn't it? Trude, oh no, that's funny. The Libranos, obviously. Then we got some America ones. Spoiler, Trump wins. Keep scrolling down. What else we got? Rebel, yeah. That megaphone, there you go. Rebel News, a little bit more low key. Rebel, I like the one on the left there, that Rebel one on the left. That's an interesting brand look, isn't it? It'll even be slightly ambiguous. Is that Rebel News they're talking about? Because it doesn't even say Rebel News. Rebel News, that's a pretty clear one there, the hoodies and whatnot. Stop the Steal, more American content, DJ Trump and MC Pence, is sort of funny. MAGA Man, that is American content there. Trump wins, Trump forever. There you go. Free shipping all over North America. If you want 10% off, and who doesn't, you can just use the coupon code LIVESTREAM. I like the store. Those are words I have not said in 5 years. But you know what? You're going to buy a Christmas gift from Jeff Bezos? Why don't you buy one from Rebel News? Shipping's included in North America. I really like the one that's just the megaphone on the hat. You wear that around, you're going to get a lot of these. 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 That's what you're going to get. I got to get one. I got to get one. I think I might get one that says Rebel News. Just go full tilt. But when I'm low-key, and everyone knows me, I'm famously polite, and I'm low-key. I don't like to make a fuss. I like to move in, move out. No one even knows I'm there. What was that? What was that? You wear that little megaphone on the hat? Was that a rebel? Or am I seeing things? Subtle, like a gentle breeze. That's me. All right, my friends, thanks for being with us today. Until tonight. Oh, we have a dog video today? We do. We'll end with a video curated by Justin, dog video. Until tonight. On behalf of all of us here at Rebel World Headquarters, see you at home. Goodbye. Keep fighting for freedom.